Today we're going to explore, is it getting high or is it healing? We're talking to the Cannabis Coach. Get ready. Hey y'all, it's your girl Dia Direct. Welcome back to the Superpower Podcast. Hey y'all, what's up? It's your girl Dia Direct, and welcome back to the Superpower Podcast, where women of power and women with powerful stories testify. And today, child, we're going to bring you something that's going to be a little bit different, but it's still going to empower you, and it's going to be a testimony in and of itself. Today, I have a special guest, Andrea Salis Daniels. Andrea is a businesswoman. She is a wife, a mother, a first lady, and she is also a cannabis coach. I know. Check it out. Andrea, hey girl.
Hey girl.
Good to have you on the show.
I am so excited to be here with you.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to have you.
Absolutely.
So, when we met, I really always, I realized immediately that you had an interesting journey and story to tell. And it's always interesting when we have various parts of ourselves and they may not always seem congruent. Yeah. And you don't always know which part of yourself to introduce to certain people, and it may be judgy and all that, but people don't know the story behind your glory. So I want to know the what, the why, and the how you became a business owner who educates people and coaches people about the medical benefits of cannabis. So walk me through that a little bit.
The way you put it is just exactly what it is. We don't really know oftentimes how to introduce yourselves. And sometimes, more often than not, there's always this pause when I do introduce myself as someone who's in the medical cannabis or in the cannabis industry at all, because you don't know what kind of response you're going to get from them. And it started probably 10 years ago. I quit counting, but it's been 10 years that I've been in this industry, and I have had the great privilege to be a part of many firsts. And we just happen to be in Texas, where we're still dealing with, what it is and what it isn't. But it has taken me on a journey all across the country and internationally.
So tell me, what's the name of your company?
So my company is Healthway Education Systems, and we have been accredited in cannabinoid therapy for medical professionals, state agencies, other education systems. We have been accredited for over 7 years, and our specialty and our modules are in cannabinoid therapy.
Okay, so what is cannabinoid therapy, and who are your clients?
So it's easier to say cannabinoid therapy than, hey, I need to teach you how to take cannabis, right? Because everyone is still in mainstream, not like it was maybe 3 years ago. And again, that's not a long time from now. But people are still concerned about even saying the word. And so when you're dealing with medical professionals who are being presented options that you and I are trying to use for our own good, we want to exhaust me. If I'm a patient, I want to exhaust every option and whatever's going on in my health. And so I was taking care of my mother, and that's where I needed to find the healthiest way to have a conversation with her medical doctor. And so that's where Healthway came from. And in that, he said, you know what? I don't have a problem with it. Now, mind you, this has been 10 years ago.
Now, take a step back. You were taking care of your mother because she was experiencing what?
I tell everybody she had everything but cancer.
Okay.
And from a young age, my mother struggled with atherosclerosis. And then that moved into, the hardening of the arteries, diabetes, eventually kidney failure. And it just became complicated when we're taking care of our loved ones, right? And my mother was a smoker. And so it's one of those things that, okay, how do I help her have a better quality of life every day? I'm her primary caregiver. I have resigned from my job. I was the most flexible with my siblings to be able to care for her 24 hours. And so I became her primary caregiver. And so I said, okay, well, I know she wants to smoke. It's that hand-mouth association, right? But she wasn't eating. And I said, well, let me try and give her some CBD. At the time, we had CBD vape cartridges. There may have been some vape, kind of knows what the little vapes are. But I wanted to see how it would respond to her. And then what I did is I started taking the actual flower, because at this point, nothing's legal where we are. We're still dealing with the laws of possession. Can I even have it in my possession, right? Because we've been told the lie of what it is and what it isn't. And so I began to break up. It's the flower. It is a flower. And I started putting it in her food in its raw form. And what that does is that it enabled her to have an appetite.
Mm-hmm.
She ate more, but it did not impair her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I said, well, what is this? What's going on?
So she didn't feel like relaxed or feel high?
She felt very relaxed.
Okay.
Her appetite is there because you have, we can sit here and talk about the science of it, but when it's in its raw form, it's a superfood. So treat it just like a kale, treat it just like a spinach. And so,
but doses matter.
So
how did you know how much to give her? Because that might be where the medical side comes in, giving a person too much. How did you navigate that?
So while this is happening and I'm taking care of my mother and I am experimenting with her, but I'm noticing a change, there was an opportunity for me to be a part of bringing forth, applying for a license in Texas. I had clients that were in the cannabis industry from California to Colorado. And so I understood the business of cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, they're making laws, Dia, and how do you know what to dose someone? Because they are making laws on conditions. You've heard that language before. Whether you have PTSD, whether you have chronic pain, whether you have some type of neurological condition, those are some of the primary reasons why someone would consume cannabis on a medical basis. The issue with that was, as a state agency, did I ask you, the practitioner, to even be involved or brought to the table to even recommend it or prescribe it?
So in other words, you need to ask a physician to be engaged in the process?
You should ask a physician to be engaged in the process. Mm-hmm. But this is where the gap is. And so this is where Healthway comes in, and we bridge this gap, because if I'm a practitioner, I've never been taught cannabis in medical school. Mm-hmm. Never. Mm-hmm. We have a U.S. patent on cannabinoids. People don't know that.
Okay, so stop
so
right
that's
there.
A whole other con.
So, because I'll put it this way, medical doctors that I've spoken with, mm-hmm. I've had several conversations with my own physicians who have chosen to become more functional in terms of their practice, where they want to be more holistic, even though they have a medical license, because they talk about how medical school really emphasizes medication.
Prescription care.
You almost have to go back to school again to learn specialties, mm-hmm. or to be able to treat from a preventative perspective.
Absolutely.
And I think that's changing in the industry. But, okay, I still want to just say that part of it. So continue.
So to your point, the functional part of it, when we see us as patients, mm-hmm. right, we want to just feel better.
Right.
I want to feel better. You're telling me that I need to take these 8 medications. I got enough sense to know that one of them doesn't go with the other. And oftentimes, we as the patient don't understand that for one prescription that they're prescribing us, there's about another 6 to 8 to counter the side effects that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so at any given time, you could be on 32 medications. My mother was on 24 medications.
Wow.
And at some point, I couldn't get her out of the bed. My mother, nothing wrong with her faculties. It was just a matter of, because everything is so complicated, do we really need to take all of this?
Yeah. Personally, I don't like taking a whole lot of pills, because here's the thing. I'm not a good pill taker, but then taking all of them, mm-hmm. remembering to take everything, especially if you're elderly,
3 times a day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
There might be 6 pills in the morning, another 4 in the afternoon. You got another 8 at night. Who wants to live like that? Now, mind you, we are grateful for medicine. Oftentimes, we want to say, did I exhaust every option? Did I change my diet? And when we are giving these diagnoses, whatever it may be, we automatically think, what do I need to take away? So as we are going to our doctors, for me, for instance, you have an iron deficiency. Your vitamin D is low. I need you to take more so that let's deposit more iron in you because there's a deficiency. Let's deposit more vitamin D inside of you so that your body can have more functionality. The thing about cannabis is that it responds directly to what we call our endocannabinoid system. Say it with me. Right? Exactly. It's the endocannabinoid system.
Break it down.
And so that is where medical professionals are not trained on. And it is a system in our body. We know who our nervous system is, right? But the endocannabinoid system responds to our neurotransmitters. And you're going to find it in our receptors called a CB1 and a CB2. And when a lot of functionality in the brain. And so when we're dealing with pain, when we're dealing with seizure, that behavior or those symptoms or those diagnoses are the cannabinoids. You're deficient in cannabinoids in your system.
And where is that located?
So you have a CB1 receptor that's going to be mainly in your brain and those neurotransmitters. And then you have what's called a CB2 receptor that's mostly found in our spleen.
Okay.
And so one receptor is going to play more towards, we all know what an autoimmune disease, I got autoimmune disease, right? That can be your Crohn's, right? That can be that arthritis. That can be diabetes. When we're having there are multiple autoimmune conditions.
There is.
And so what the cannabinoids do, when we see this plant, that we're like, no, I don't want to hold it. I don't want to touch it. It's bad. That plant right there can actually be able to help. I call it an extinguishing system. Our body's on fire. We're mature. I am. And I deal with
Get out of my business.
I'm just
get out of my business.
We grow and stuff goes on. And oftentimes we are walking around and we know our body's inflamed. Yeah. We can feel it. We feel it in our face. We feel it in our legs.
Child, please.
And so we think we need to just take some medicine, but the medicine is in our food. Cannabis is a part of that superfood. And so I can take...
Because that's what I want to know. What makes cannabis so special that it can do all these things?
So cannabis has... We heard of CBD. Okay, we got that one, right? Cannabidiol. And then you have THC. It's bad. And that's tetrahydrocannabidiol. Okay? And both of those are found in all cannabis plants.
Which are found where? Where does one find a cannabis plant?
All right. So you've got... you ready? You ready, dear?
I don't know.
All right.
Am I?
So you've got... Everyone here, you know what hemp is. We know that hemp is legal. Okay?
I used to use hemp for my hair.
That's right.
All
right. So hemp in and of itself, the way that it will be grown as a farmer, is still going to produce THC. Now let me take it slow, just a little bit, okay? I tell people when we talk about the cannabis plant, hemp is cannabis. Say it with me.
Hemp is cannabis.
Hemp is cannabis.
Yes, we're learning today. Okay. Yes.
So I don't want people to be afraid of it because it is what it is. And we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And so I ask people to consider a rose. And you have many varietals of roses. You have a red rose, you got a white rose, you got a yellow rose, you can have a black rose. Oftentimes, those roses are hybrids. And so you have cannabis plants that are now hybrids, okay? And so the primary cannabis plant is going to have what we call cannabinoids that are in the hundreds. That our primaries are the CBD and THC. Everything that's legal out there or governed by any policy is what they're talking about THC, right? And it's the Delta 9. I don't want to confuse our audience. Oh, the store next door, they got Delta 8, they got Delta 10, they have this. I want you to know that it naturally grows. God made it. He made it for our good. It's not to be demonized. It's misunderstood.
Okay.
But he made it for our good. And so when we're dealing with people are concerned about it's going to get me high. Oh, I'm not going to take that. Look, because I hear it playing in my head, right?
Oh,
All of it.
Oh, absolutely.
All of it. I don't want to take it. It's going to trigger some mental psychosis, or I'm going to be addictive. And there is, people.
Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree, but I do not completely agree.
Okay.
Okay. Because oftentimes I tell people, they say, Andrea, come on. My son, he's 23 and he's addicted to cannabis. He's addicted to weed.
Right. He can't function. He's not functional.
And then this is what I ask you.
Gets high all the time, can't do anything.
You know what I ask you? What happened at 3, 5, 7, and 9? Where did the breaches happen? And oftentimes, and I get a little choked up behind this because we as parents, and most especially mothers, we take care of the household, right? We're taking care of the children. We're taking care of our husband. We're taking care of our parents. And so we are making these health decisions for our families, right? Don't you take that Pepto-Bismol, hey, put some castor oil on it. Remember that from your grandparents?
Absolutely.
And so we're making these decisions. And so I tell people, because it's something I've experienced, where did breaches happen that you saw that there may be something a little bit there with this child? And that allows you to reflect, not to cause any blame, but I want you to acknowledge what would cause him to do that. In most cases, when someone, especially a young person, is smoking weed, can I say that, Dia?
You just did.
Okay. There's anxiety going on.
Yeah.
They're heightened inflammation, right? So they're heightened in their neural sensories, right? The cannabis is actually settling them. Okay? Remember I told you, think of it as a waterfall. And when those receptors are inflamed and they're like crossing, they're supposed to be in here like this, and they're just on fire, just doing everything, right? Just like someone having seizures, okay? I'm not saying that mental health is like a seizure, but I want you to think that they are misfiring.
Okay.
Okay? And when that anxiety is heightened, their receptors are misfiring. They're not in alignment. What cannabis is brings harmony to your body. It brings homeostasis to your body. So when we say, man, I'm walking around here, I just don't feel right. How many times do we say that? But we can't identify exactly what it is that we don't feel right about. Some of us may say, hey, I'm going to have a glass of wine, or I'm going to have a Coca-Cola, or I'm going to have a piece of cake, or I'm going to have something.
To make you feel better.
To make you feel better. Cannabis, and when they are consuming it, they are wanting relief from somewhere. And I ask us to ask ourselves, why would he or she decide to consume it anyway?
I'm going to push back just a little bit.
Absolutely.
So most professionals in the medical industry, or even some people who are just opposed to it spiritually, would say, first of all, what credentials do you have medically to tell a physician about cannabis or to talk about it in this way, right? And then spiritually, where is your support for God made this? Ironically, when I met you at a Christian women's event.
You did.
And I knew that some of those people were customers. They were clients. I didn't say which event, but I'm just saying.
That's right.
So let's not pretend like,
Absolutely.
people who may be conservative or Christian or whatever aren't interested or participants of cannabis. And they may not know all the terminology. They may not know fully the science behind it. And so that's why I'm really interested in your perspective, because there is science behind it. It is prescribed.
That's right.
And so, but it's prescribed by someone with a medical license. And so, from your perspective and as an educator, what is it that you offer in terms of your learning and credentials, both scientifically and spiritually, that supports that this is a natural plant that is good for us? And here's the kicker: in doses, right? So it's not just the consumption of it, it's how you consume it and how much of it you consume, which only a doctor could really tell you what the right amount is. Or am I wrong about that?
Okay.
So that was a lot.
That was a lot.
Let's unpack it.
That was a lot, but we're gonna go backwards. That's the point. The practitioners don't know how to prescribe it, and so that is a lot of the pushback. We have ratios, and I'll come back to that. As far as how did I get here in the first place? As a businesswoman, I understood that there was an absence of education. So having a CE background, instructional design background, what was the best way to deliver to practitioners how they can communicate with their patient? And so I created this program so that you as a practitioner can have a little more information to have a conversation with your patient.
So you have a curriculum.
We have a curriculum.
Got it.
And it's written by practitioners.
Okay.
So it's peer-to-peer education from physicians, PhDs, nurses. We have multiple board certifications from American Medical, Nursing, Pharmacology, and Pharmacy. That is pharmacology. Sorry. But so that's where we are. We are an accredited body of work. We have multiple modules that have been recognized by multiple state agencies as a vetted body of work that can tell a practitioner or teach a practitioner how to prescribe, how to understand if your patient qualifies for underneath the medical program. This is the deal as a patient. Oftentimes, they're not going to tell their doctor that they're self-medicating on anything. Is that fair?
That's real.
They're not going to tell them. How many times have I taken my mother to the doctor, and you've been taking your pills, and what do they say? Yeah, well, it's going to come up in the blood test, number one. Yeah. And we have a behavior that the doctor needs to ask a few more questions because there's certain results that he wants, right? And so they know that they're not taking the medication as they should. That's number one. Number two, they may be taking other options to be able to give them relief. To cope. And so we also have a patient certification. If they're wanting to have medical cannabis as an option and they want their practitioner to prescribe it, then you need to learn how to consume it. When we're talking about dosing, many people have various levels of tolerance.
Yes.
Okay? And so someone may be, lightweight, right? And look, she only eat one drink, right? So somebody might be able to have 3. And their tolerance is completely different. That's going to be the same when you are prescribing a cannabis product, whether it is an over-the-counter product that's hemp-based or if it's inside of the medical program. So when we're talking to our practitioners, we're saying, hey, in a 1-to-1, meaning 1 point of CBD to a 1 point of a THC, I want people to know that THC is not bad. And it's called slow and easy, right? Low and slow. THC is like frosting on a cake. Okay? And so when you want to ease someone into THC.
It's the sugar on the top.
It's the sugar on the top. And you don't need a lot of it. The average person doesn't need a lot of it. But when we're dealing with people who have severe pain issues, they can take more as long as they can tolerate it in their body. No one's overdosing on cannabis. No one is you sleep it off. And yes, there are some adverse effects if someone takes more because their body can't tolerate it.
And what about cognitively? How it affects you?
Cognitively, again, that is going to be on a one-to-one basis. I can't tell you how you're going to respond to drinking a glass of wine versus a glass of whiskey. They're going to affect you differently. They are not the same. And so if we recommend a ratio. Okay, so your doctor's going to say, okay, you have Crohn's. And because of the pain in the Crohn's and the inflammation, I'm going to give you a ratio from one cannabinoid to the other because they work together. That one side may be heavier in CBD and low in THC, the psychoactive. But another person had the same Crohn's disease, may have a higher tolerance and need more pain control. So they'll give them a little more THC. But you're able to have this conversation with your doctor and be honest with him and say, look, or her, that listen, I'm in pain. It starts at 3:00. I may have taken my medicine, but we'll discuss, if there's any interactions that may
Right, because that's the
conflict
other
with
part,
it.
right?
So
What else are you taking that it could have
what
an adverse
else are you
effect?
taking? I
Yeah.
tell people this all the time. I don't know what you do when you go home, right? And so when someone's consuming cannabis, I just encourage those when they tell them not to judge them. When we're dealing with veterans, they deal with so much that if we're not a
Yes,
veteran
PTSD
and have
and
not
more.
been in
Yeah,
combat and
it's a
have
lot.
not been in those environments,
And a lot of them do get medically prescribed cannabis.
but this is what it does. It can compromise them being a gun holder or whatever that is. It can go into their file where they're taking a narcotic, and it isn't because the state has said that it's not a narcotic. But people look at them differently because oftentimes their consumption level is higher than the average person. And so we have to be open enough to understand that we are all different.
Right.
And we have different needs, and not every pill, because I can think about my father where they're on a revolving door of Vicodin.
Let me just interject because I'm curious. When we think about the things in this country that are legal or not legal, like sugar is legal.
Sugar's legal.
But sugar is the devil. And it's in everything.
That's right.
And
processed
so
meat, processed cereal.
All these things that we're consuming. Now, you say that cannabis is natural and that it came from God. So, do we regulate plants?
Ooh. According to the U.S. Patent 6630507, we do. A lot of people don't know that there's a patent that the U.S. filed back in as early as 1999. There's been some amendments and revisions to it, but they have a patent that states that cannabinoids respond to neurotransmitters. So isn't that some research that was had? So if you have a patent on something...
Wait, hold on. You said who said this now?
The U.S. It's actually...
The
government. And it's actually... the oversight is DSHS, which is Department of Safety and Health Services.
It used to be safe, but go ahead.
That part. Okay, so now I got a patent on something God made. Let me say that again.
Do we have patents on other plants?
We don't. I'm sure there are other, let's say, dosings or methods of the use of the plant.
Okay.
However, when we're talking about the cannabis plant that they want to demonize and criminalize, yet you have a patent stating that there's evidence that shows that there is good that can come from the plant. And so how do you have both? I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know how you have both. But, as a believer, as a pastor's wife, that's a little tricky right there because, you've got the pastor's wife who wants you to be well on purpose.
Mm.
And I want you to exhaust every option.
What kind of response have you gotten?
Listen, it is, oh, there she go. Listen, I've been called the weed lady.
Mm-hmm.
I have been called on my phone after service saying, hey, listen, I want to know what you got for this. So they want to try it. I'll go back to my mother when I was sneaking it in her food. And I finally told her what I was doing. And she was mad at me for about 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
She says, you've been sneaking that in my food and you got me on drugs and yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to get my mother-in-law to take well, just more like oils and things like that.
Absolutely.
But she has those same concerns. Like, I don't want to get high. I don't want this stuff inside of me. Mm-hmm.
And so she had to think about it. She was upset with me for about 2 or 3 days. And she calls me down the hall to her room. And she says, you know what? I've been wondering about that green stuff. She called it the green stuff.
Uh-huh.
And from that day forward, she was my biggest champion to build my business. She was my biggest champion. And when she realized this, so let me get this straight. You've been putting it in my eggs. So we'd heard about the butters or oils. I put it in spaghetti sauce. I put it in everything. A chef background, but I put it in everything. Really? And when she realized that, hey, I'm just giving you this much, she put it in her hand. She thought that it was on fire. But I'm able to talk to my 70-plus-year-old mother from Louisiana, and she says, you know what, it's not that bad. Mm-hmm. And she became my biggest champion. And even with that, having the courage to talk to her doctor, that is treating her, he says, I won't put it in her file. But you know what I need you to do? I need you to go contact my nurse practitioner in my office because her daughter has seizures and she's about to move to Colorado because she wants to get her on some type of cannabis treatment and she doesn't know when to start. That's how people are moving.
So what's the education process for doctors?
So we have telemedicine, but for doctors, oftentimes a state is going to recommend you have 4 or 6 hours, whatever this number is, of hours of education. The question is, where do I get it?
Yeah.
And so, we certainly market to doctors in their practices. We market to medical associations that we have the education available. We train the very first practitioners in the country of Mexico. We train the very first practitioners in Puerto Rico. And that includes from New Jersey to New York, Texas, Florida. But practitioners want to know more.
Yeah.
It's not that they are completely against it. They don't have enough information.
Right. They need proof. Because they're scientists.
Absolutely. And so if you can show me how I can recommend this, because my patient's taking it anyway. Let's not forget that. They're taking it anyway. You have had doctors early on, years before, that would drop a patient if they told them that hey, I'm taking this instead and I'm finding better results this way. They have dropped patients, but doctors want to know that, hey, if you're taking it, there is some good. I have now, even in some of my stores that we have customers come in, guess what I'm finding now?
What's that?
In their release documents from the emergency room, they say, go get you some CBD oil. Go get you some CBD tink. Go get you a salve. So it's not like it was, again, 3 to 5 years ago, and very thankful for that. But God made it all. He made all seed-bearing trees.
Okay, so talk to me scripturally, because I need to know.
We can just start in Genesis. There are other scripture references, but even if you just talk about Genesis 1:29, when he made all things, he made all the fruit, he made all the trees, he made all seed-bearing fruit. He made it all. And so we have, from ancestry, native indigenous people who have used the plant. It goes back to the China era, back in the 1500s when they found it to be medicinal. So this isn't evidence that isn't there. The issue is if I can't bottle it up and package it up and sell it, then you can't have it either.
So naturally, where does the plant come from and how is it cultivated?
So the plant is going to come from seed varietals. Remember, we had the analogy about the roses, right? So you have people are saying, hey, I want an indica or I want a sativa. And those things, that is still real and relevant. When you're producing cannabis.
So wait, explain the difference.
I'm getting ready to.
Okay.
Okay, indica, in the couch.
Okay, so that means I can't hardly function. Okay.
It's supposed to lower you.
Okay.
And then you have sativa that is to give you a little more energy. It should not make you as drowsy, but everyone is different.
Mm-hmm.
So an indica is going to be more of a lower varietal, where a sativa is going to be more of your hyper energy.
Mm-hmm. So is that usually what people with depression are being?
It's one of those sweet spots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it may be a hybrid of the both. So when you have plants,
see, that's where it gets tricky. Because who's giving you that mixture? Who's determining that?
So often when farmers are cultivating these plants, you have different farmers who specialize in different varietals. Okay, and so you have a group that may specialize in indica varieties, okay, or strains as they'll call them, and they make products or they grow flower that's going to yield X amount of THC. This is good for this. I don't want to name drop any flower names, you know what I mean? But, one of my favorites is what's called Blue Dream. Okay. It is legendary.
Oh, okay.
And Blue Dream is a sativa hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I tried Blue Dream, and I told a friend of mine, I was in California, in the hills, and just having a beautiful day. And I'm like, what you give me?
Mm-hmm.
I said, it's beautiful. And I did not realize, I call it like garanimals. Remember garanimals used to match your clothes? Mm-hmm. You have to match a strain that's going to respond to you. I tell people this, we know that cannabis has a very distinct smell, don't we? It's very distinct. And I tell people, I want you to just do a sniff test for me. And I want you to smell it. If you pull away from it, like, ooh, that doesn't agree with me, you probably shouldn't take it. You probably shouldn't, because it's responding to your sensory, though those are called terpenes. It's responding to your endocannabinoid system. Okay. And so if you smell it, oh, it's kind of strong there. I would probably say, hey, let's try another one. So let's smell another one. And then you may smell one that it's still distinct in its smell, right? But it may be gentler in your sensory when you smell it. Oh, this smells kind of good. I smell more lemon in this one, or I smell a little more lavender in this one. And you may respond better to it. Then I'm going to say, I suggest you consume this one.
Now, what do you say to people who have had bad reactions as a result of the plant?
Okay, so bad reaction. I say don't give up on it. Number one. Number two, what did you take? How did you take it? You started off saying, there's delivery. I call it, they're delivery systems. People can inhale it. People can eat it in their food. People can drink it. So it's a matter of how do I want to consume.
But the most popular is smoking. And doesn't smoking minimize the benefit?
So
the health benefit.
Let me tell you something.
Or inhaling it with a vape.
Well, let me say this. Often people we're not going to agree on this, especially in my industry. I'm personally not a proponent for smoking, putting fire to it and burning it. Because you're burning off the terpenes, you're burning off the flavonoids.
Define terpenes.
A terpene is it's the oils in the plant. You've got limonene, you got lavender, you've got pinene. There's multiple terpenes that
flavors,
flavonoids. So it responds to how you're tasting it. Okay. The terpenes are so essential because you can have a terpene profile that's going to respond to your psychosis. You can have a terpene profile that's going to respond to your arthritis. So when again, remember the smell test I told you? They're smelling the terpenes, and it's the oil that comes off. And you know, well, hey, this is sticky, right? It's the oil that the plant produces.
Okay.
Okay, so when we're talking about um, what's going to be the best one for me to consume it. When I'm burning it, I'm burning off most of everything that's good about it, and you're switching it from an acid to an alkaline. Okay, so remember I told you I gave it to my mother without burning it in a natural form. It's called THC with a V and a little A. But that's another. I'll put it out there for you,
Okay.
so your
Okay.
listeners
Okay.
can hear. But it's called THCVA,
Mm-hmm.
and it's before it's burned.
Mm.
So when it's burned, that's where you have more of the carcinogenic, because you're inhaling a burnt material. You're inhaling, if it's not a good wrapper, what is it wrapped in? And so is it sugar? What kind of sugar are you using? You right? It's still sugar. And so it's a matter of how am I consuming it? Where I would have someone that may have some pulmonary issues or having some type of some of the neurological issues, I would prefer that they vaporize it, because you're going to get it in its natural form.
What does that look like?
And I'm not talking a vape pen from
That's
the
why
convenience
we need
store.
to clarify.
Okay?
What does that look like? Yeah.
So if I were to we were to recommend someone to take a vapor method of delivery, it would be it's a water-based burning. The actual plant is not physically burned. It is heated, and then the entire properties of the plant are released to you. All
Is
the
it like when
cannabinoids.
somebody uses a vaporizer in general?
A vaporizer in general. So
your house is going to smell like weed.
it can.
Okay.
It can. You know, I tell people, if you can sit outside, do, or find you a space. There's candles. There's other methods that we can use, Dia, to kind of help offset the smell. But it's not going to be as strong as lighting it on fire, but you're gonna smell it. And so I just tell people, just embrace it. Embrace it. Don't be afraid of it. And so they can vaporize it, and they're going to have more immediate response to that. And then we all knew about the oils, right? Take these oil. How do I take the oils? 1 drop of oil, 2 drops of oil, full dropper of oil. The oils are still good, and we want people to get it in their system, right? And so we hear about CBG now, and that is like a non-intoxicating one, but it helps with all.
Because that means from the ground.
No, cannabigerol. It's just a cannabinoid. Remember, there's hundreds of them.
Okay,
not
so the
just
G.
THC.
Because I've heard of the letters. Okay, so G doesn't mean that.
Does not mean that.
Okay.
It means gerol.
Okay.
It's just it's a cannabinoid from the plant.
Got it.
Okay. So I can consume it in my food. I can drink it, and so there's extraction processes. And so there's multiple ways that you can get it in your system. And I just encourage people that don't think of it as a taking something away, but what is it replacing? What is it giving you in the deficiencies that we have in our body?
So as we close, are you able to certify lay people about with this education? And if so, what does that certification, how does it benefit them?
Absolutely. So through Healthway, we not only have the practitioner modules, we also have patient care certification, that if I'm a patient and I want to begin to get a prescription from my doctor, I can take a class and learn what's going to be the best delivery system for me. What are some of the ratios I need to be considering? What varieties are going to be good for me? And we'll line that out inside of your patient certification. I'm in the industry of business, and so in my business, we deal with the retail side of things. And so we also have a dispensary technician, kind of like a pharmacy technician, where they're trained on the different strains and varietals, the conditions of care, how to deliver this, how to make the best recommendation from your practitioner for you. And so those are some of the classes that we can provide, from our CME and CE units to our full certification vocational
And so the people
training.
who are taking the CME and CE, are those physicians?
Those are mainly physicians who want credit hours, or just the education in period. Because in most states, they have to register as a prescribing physician.
Okay.
And so in the prescribing physician, they can come to us and we can train them on the core. And then if they have a specialty, they can choose a specialty.
So for the average person who wants to know more or take a class, how can they find you?
They can find me, Dia, at healthwayeducation.com. That's where they can find me.
So what would you like to leave us with?
I want you to exhaust everything for your good. Again, God made this plant, and we in our natural selves have found it to be in conflict oftentimes with it. And for those of us that still may be curious about what cannabis is and what it isn't, I encourage you to get a little more information. Don't penalize someone that chooses to use cannabis, and just learn a little bit more.
Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
As we end this is the Superpower Podcast, so I have got to know, what's your superpower?
Ooh, what's my superpower? My superpower is, I've been told the love for people, that I want you to be well. At the end of anything else, that are you well mentally? Is your heart well? And is your body well?
I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
From getting high to healing. What'd y'all think about that show? I know, it was different, right? It was interesting. A lot of information that we're not always given about the cannabis plant. So you can make an informed decision. One thing I know for sure is the Bible says, in all you're getting, get understanding. We need to understand what we're consuming in our bodies, not just cannabis. Wine, water, sugar, meats, all of the above. All of the above. You have to be responsible for what you consume, what you ingest, and how it affects you. But it starts with education. So I hope this show has educated you. I hope that you download it, share it, comment, and let's continue the conversation. Hey y'all, it's your girl Dia Direct. Welcome back to the Superpower Podcast. Make sure you tell your friends and your friend's friend to tap in, subscribe to the Superpower Podcast on Dia Direct TV on YouTube. That's DEYA Direct TV.